what if someone says, okay, if you don't affirm people's lifestyles and their sexual choices, then they are more likely to commit suicide.
Um, Again, I think we've partly touched on this before. We talked about, how do we treat other people? And does disapproving of certain behavior or lifestyle mean that we're actually endorsing, for example, you know, um, bashing and violence and sort of unjust treatment and so forth? So part of it is that. The other part of it is that there is increased, risk of suicidality among people who identify as LGBT, right? Uh, Whether this is due to other people not approving of their lifestyle is not clear, because the reason is that even in countries that are very sort of officially and practically also pro LGBT, very liberal, like Sweden and places like this, they've done studies and they find that mental health outcomes of LGBT communities there are not substantially better than they are in places like the United States, where you have more like conservative people, and it's not just like totally. I mean, it is in a lot of places, right? But we're not Sweden. The U.S. is not Sweden, right? Um, in some ways that's good, some ways that's not so good. I mean, Sweden has, every place has good and bad in it. But there are reports. I mean, there are studies that have been done on this. Of course, if you are part of the kind of LGBT movement, this won't make much sense because everything has to be blamed on kind of social pressure and other people.
Right.
If you take the view that homosexuality itself may be a manifestation of kind of like deeper issues going on, then it makes more sense because there's a lot more going on in people's lives that we've said before. And some of it might be caused from like what they call environmental stress, a non-accepting environment. But I think the degree to which that is true is easy to overstate that. And because studies show that even in very kind of open societies, you still have substantial. And, I think it's even clearer when you come to transgenderism. Because when it comes to transgender, and the statistics are clear that the rate of suicidality does not go down at all as a statistical norm after gender transition procedures, be they chemical, surgical, or otherwise, right? Now, maybe certain individuals will say, this saved my life.
Right.
And I'm only not suicidal anymore because I transitioned, right? But statistically speaking across the board, right? If it's true for some individuals, it's not true for many others. And some people, it gets worse.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that is used as a tactic, especially in the transgender. Like, would you rather have a dead son or a living daughter? Like a boy who says, I want to transition, and the parents are concerned and don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
That is a very, I think, dishonest tactic, especially when it comes to like the transgender issue.
Mm-hmm.
Suicidality and other mental health outcomes, less than optimal mental health outcomes are real things among LGBT populations. But again, I think that we have to have a more comprehensive view of, what are the factors that are causing that? How much of it is external? How much of it is internal? Yeah. Right? And to the degree to which some of that is caused by unjust factors, that we would identify as unjust, like you're ostracizing a person, you're right. Turning your brother away at the mosque because he's kind of effeminate. You have no, he's not pushing anything. And you have no like even proof that he's sort of involved in some type of hard-on relationship. You're just kind of making assumptions, and you're leading to that person's isolation and all of that. Those are things that, yes, we have to address. But does it mean that you have to go all the way to the, extent of saying, well, we approve of behaviors which Allah has forbidden? Again, that's not an option because we don't write morality. We're not the authors of it. Modern people don't understand that because they don't sort of accept the notion of an objective morality, certainly don't accept the notion by and large of a divinely authored morality, right? Or say morality that's underwritten by a divine command. But it's not for us to decide, what is right and wrong. And we know that Allah in His wisdom does not forbid something to people where the forbidding of it in and of itself is leading them to suicide. That's not, that's not what it's about, right? So I don't know if that really
No, it does. That basically
comes up a lot too, right? Like you're leading to people's suicide by not being completely LGBT affirming,
right?
and
Yeah.
that's not a fair charge.
No. Yeah. So in a nutshell, we're saying that affirming your choice, whether it's your gender transition or your gender identity or your sexuality, it might not do anything for your mental health outcomes, and it might not have any effect whatsoever on your suicidality. And in fact, like those sorts of things, actually, it might be a chicken and the egg sort of situation where it might be the just a symptom of what you're going through in and of itself, right? Like this sort of thing that you're struggling with. So that's
It's
I think
complex, right? And I think we should be aware, at least some members of the community need to be aware of all of these different theories and studies and so forth. I think theologically speaking, we don't need to take a hard stance on the actual etiology or origins of same-sex desires and so forth. I don't think it's very clear to anybody.